and welcome to
Bunso
Bunso Bites.
Bites.
I'm your host, Ami43,
And I am your co-host, Chiggy.
and this is the first episode of our podcast. We're so excited to bring you along on this wonderful journey. This has been a passion project of ours for a little bit now, and we're so excited to see it come to fruition. So just to kind of start and give a little bit of context, this episode is just kind of going to be an introduction to us and how we kind of ended up getting here today. So, Chiggy, take it away.
Sure. My real name is JC, but I would like to go by Chiggy. It used to be part of my gamer tag, but the full gamer tag is more of an inside joke, which I will not get into. Um, I'm about 38 years old now. We have been actually dating for a little over 6 years, close to 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I've been wanting to do a podcast for quite some time. Since one of my friends started a podcast, I listened to his first season, and I told Ami about it, and she started to listen to it, and I guess we got here.
Yeah. So I have always been interested in and kind of in the zeitgeist of all things internet. I actually went to school and studied social media, funny enough, and it's always kind of been an interest of mine. I just didn't really know how I personally would break into it necessarily. And when Chicky came to me about this podcast idea, it made sense. It makes sense for where we are in our lives, and it makes sense for kind of what we have to offer, both in podcast space, but just kind of like us as individuals. We are two millennials, and we have very busy lives, although we don't have kids yet, but we are in hopes and plans of getting married and eventually starting a family. But we're kind of at that place where all things are really, really great right now, and we wanted to capture and enjoy this season of our lives kind of before we step into the next big chapter of our lives. And so yeah, that's been how we got here. My actual name is Alyssa Marie, hence Ami43. I43 or 143 is an old internet thing. What was that, MySpace days maybe? Or is it before MySpace? Maybe Friendster?
I mean, you could literally say 143 is back to pager code.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Wow. I don't know if everyone knows what a pager is, but yeah, that is true. I didn't think about it that way. And so it's just kind of been part of my usernames and gamer tags as well. For context, we are big nerds, if you couldn't tell by the background.
Yes, all of our stuffies galore.
We're big Stuffy fans, and we're big just overall nerds. What do we have? We have Pokemon, Boba, Grogu, more Pokemon. I have a Ravenclaw, and you can't see her, but I have a Hello Kitty right here. So, Squishmallows did take over our lives, but in a good way. Anyways, so I am not as old as Chiggy. I am 31. Sometimes even I forget how old I am, because I think it was, a couple weeks ago I was telling someone that I was 30, and I'm like, Chiggy had to correct me, and he was like, no, you're definitely 31. I was like, oh.
Yep.
Even I forgot that. I moved to our area, Hampton Roads. We live in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia. I moved here a couple years back, and then that's kind of how Chiggy and I started dating, on top of, life happening. And yeah, so that's how I made it here. But just to kind of tell this story, because it's one of my favorite stories, but I only like telling it when I'm with Chiggy. So, Chiggy, if you could get the story started, we can kind of work things off. But
Sure.
This is the story of how we started dating.
So, I've actually been here in the Hampton Roads area for more than 25 years now, and we actually knew each other back then when I first moved here, and you were still a young lad.
Oh, I'm a lad now. Okay.
But I mean, back then I was in my teenage years, and you were still a kid. So
right. So you can see
we knew each other, but we didn't know each other.
No, that's not true. We knew each other, but our ages back then, I was still considered a child, and you were already a teenager or a preteen at the time.
Yeah.
So it didn't make sense for us to be friends.
Right. That's what I mean by quote unquote know each other.
Yeah, but we knew each other. We were in similar circles. He happened to actually be friends with my older brother at the time. But as a lot of people are in the Hampton Roads region, I'm a military brat, so I moved away. And Chiggy happened to just stay here. I grew up all over the place. And when I was older, I had just, not just, I finished college and I was trying to kind of figure out what to do. I was working a bunch of contract jobs and some odd jobs, kind of sticking in the retail space because when I graduated, the job market wasn't ideal. Once I was kind of getting my feet to getting situated, so to speak, I found out that my family had to move again, and I couldn't go with my family. So then we all decided that I should move to back to Virginia because I do have some relatives that still live here, and it would just be better for me to live with relatives. My dad's logic being, well, if your car breaks down or if your tire pops, then who are you gonna call? And as much I was about to
Ghostbusters.
say, as much as I could say insurance at the time, it was overwhelming and it was daunting. And so it did make sense for me at the time. I was like 24, 25 years old. And I was like, yeah, I'll move here and I'll figure it out. Moved here with like, when I filled up my car just with stuff. And I moved in with some relatives that I have up here. And I ended up, through, again, just kind of mutual friends, ended up re-meeting and reconnecting with Chiggy. We had a mutual friend who asked us to like hang out a couple of times, and that led to us being like, "Oh, I remember you from back in the day, and I remember you from back in the day." But the thing that actually like solidified it was our mutual friend was helping me look for a new job because obviously I just relocated and I was kind of just trying to figure things out. And just so happened that where Chiggy was working, there was an opening.
Right. And so I'm going to backtrack from where you left off and
Mm.
give a little background of me. So I moved here in the Hampton Roads region more than 25 years ago. I too was also a military brat. My father was in the Navy, and he actually wanted to plan his retirement in Virginia. So he finished out his last couple of years here in Virginia, and then he retired and then took up another job with the post office just to have a second pension, and did that for 10 years. And now he has a double pension and is retired somewhere in the Philippines. For me, I was a math major. It took me quite a while to graduate since I changed majors from accounting to math. And then I had a concentration in teaching, and so I held a professional teaching license for 5 years.
It was
That didn't
five
really
years?
work out. Yeah, it was
Oh,
for 5 years.
okay.
That's when you have to renew it after 5 years.
Oh, okay, okay.
But that didn't work out after the first year and a half. And so when I was in transition of finding a new job, I just picked up whatever I could at that time. And so I think back then I was trying to find something in hotel keeping. Um,
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so I applied at two different ones and landed a job at one. And then, I didn't reply back to the other one since I already got the full time job.
You're like, I got this one. I'm good.
Right. And so I worked there for about a month, only because during that time I was like on the worst diet ever. Everything was always on the go. And so, I was just eating a whole bunch of processed foods. Whatever I can get my hands on, just ate that. Ended up getting gout, and I couldn't walk. And
Mm.
so, since you had to be on your feet, moving around to the different rooms and all that, I couldn't work. And so after telling them I couldn't work anymore, they let me go. And then, as soon
It
as I
wasn't
was
like they fired you, though,
no,
right?
they
Yeah.
let me go. Like,
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
if you want to reapply for the position, you can.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't
So
know
it
that.
wasn't like, oh, you're terminated, you can't apply here anymore.
Gotcha, gotcha, gotcha.
And so at that time, when I was back on my feet, able to move around again, I applied at like the same place. I also applied at one of the parks locally, and then I also applied at the gelato shop where we met. And so, since I got the job at the gelato shop first, of course I worked there. I was a delivery driver over there for, I think, a year before you started
I
to
was gonna
work
say it
there.
was a little bit. At least 8 or 9 months, if not a full year. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, like Ami was saying, she needed a job when she first moved here. And of course, our mutual acquaintance, our
A
friend,
friend,
okay,
yeah.
sorry, um, she was asking around and, she sent me a text. She was like, hey, you have any openings at your job? I was like, yeah, I can ask my boss. And then, of course, she was looking for another person to work during the day to join the day team, whereas the night team was just filled with all high school people. So,
Mm.
um, I let Ami know, and she filled out her paperwork and all that.
This was what was crazy about this. This was same day.
Yes, and so
So
I
yeah.
let her know that I let our mutual friend know that there was an opening. Um, our mutual friend gave my number to her so we can get in contact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I sent her the paperwork through email. She printed it out, filled it out, brought it in, dressed up for the interview the same day.
Yeah, this is like 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I
Yeah,
remember. Yeah,
came in, had the interview. It was, I think it's about 30 minutes,
give or take. I mean,
something like that.
it's really. I mean, it was really basic. It
Yeah,
was to work at a gelato shop. It wasn't like I was signing up to be a rocket scientist. But yeah, it was same day, and it was really funny because when I walked in to the interview, uh, I felt so unprepared, but I was also just like, well, there's like the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work out. So I don't know if that mentality kind of made me more confident, and so I feel like the interview just went really well, which is probably why it went so quickly. Also, at the time, the gelato shop really needed someone during the
yeah.
day.
I mean, it also helps that you are a communications major. I don't know if that helps anything with your public speaking and just how you interact with other people, but I would like to believe that it did help.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you got the job the same day as you applied for it, and then the next day you were literally at work.
No, 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 no. Because it was a Friday. I think I started like the following Monday.
Well,
Something like that. But it
when
was a quick turnaround.
when I mean the next day is the next business day.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So even though the gelato shop does is open every day,
Yeah.
like in my head, the next business day is Friday to Monday.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
um, you started work on Monday. You were in the gelato shop making food, scooping gelato, and I was out delivering.
Mm-hmm.
And we would talk to each other like every now and then whenever you had a question. And then, of course,
We ate lunch
yeah,
together.
when you had your lunch break, that's
Yeah.
when I would actually like talk to you.
Right, right.
And then I remember the first day, you were so surprised that I sat right next to you, and I just asked if I could sit next to you, while we eat lunch, and then that's when we started talking.
To be fair, for context, the first time we hung out, he did not really look at me or talk to me other than like, hi, hello, how are you? But when we were hanging out with a group of friends, it was really because you were playing. What were you playing? Your DS or you were playing something?
Mm-hmm.
It's when we went to
The
ramen.
ramen,
Yes.
yeah.
And so like I didn't necessarily get bad vibes from him, but I definitely got vibes of like, oh, he thinks that I'm like not cool. And so yeah, on the first time that he sat down to eat lunch with me, I was like, oh, he's actually like really cool and he doesn't he doesn't hate me.
Well, I mean, when we first had that hangout at the ramen shop,
Yeah.
you know, they just told me, "Hey, you want to go out for ramen?" I
Mm.
was like, "Sure." I'm on the way there. I'm like already playing my game,
Yeah.
and for all intents and purposes, it was Monster Hunter on the 3DS. I don't know which one. I think it was Generations or something. But I was already playing the game. They didn't tell me who was coming, but I was in the car with our mutual friends. And then when we got there, they were like, "Oh, hey, this certain person's coming." I was like, "Okay, cool." you know. And so I didn't really think anything of it. And so I was doing my thing and then, just playing on my game until I got done with, whatever quest that was on. So it looked like I was standoffish to her.
Sure, yeah. Well, it was just kind of like I was so new here and I knew people from when we were kids, but obviously I had been gone for how long have I been gone for? 20 years because I left when I was like 6, 7, came back 24, 25. Yeah. So I was gone for a decade. So even though I kind of recognized people like as a child, I didn't actually know these people. Like I didn't grow up with them anymore. And so hanging out with you and you being so not present, I guess, I was like, oh, he like definitely thinks that I'm just some lame kid. Again, for the context, because in my head you were friends with my brother. So you didn't think that I was anything.
Right. And in my head, I didn't care.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But anyways, so we worked together.
Sorry, we're gonna chill out. You didn't even tell the best part of that story.
What?
When I walked in.
Did I stop? Like I haven't stopped telling the story?
Okay, well, because it was at the interview, wasn't it? The walking in part?
Yeah.
Okay. But we started talking about me working already.
Yeah.
Okay. Continue.
Like I can get to that part. You just didn't allow me to get there yet. Okay. Anyways, so we were working together. We would spend our lunch time together talking. And that Friday, our mutual friend invited us out to eat at Buffalo Wild Wings. And so, I wasn't really expecting much. Just go out to eat and then again, hang out.
Friend hangout, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's it. That'd be the night. Mm-hmm. And so it was weird to me when you asked me, hey, are you going to Buffalo Wild Wings later? And I was like, yeah. And you were like, can you drive me there? And I was like, hey, wait, what? Huh? This does not compute.
No. Because at this point, we had been working together
5 days.
Yeah, 5 days. And I enjoyed spending time with you. But it felt like because the only time we were really talking was at work. And so I wanted to take the opportunity to be like, well, if we're going to hang out, like, let's actually, like, talk and let's, hang out. And so I wanted to see where that would go. It wasn't necessarily that I was already thinking, like, oh, I'm going to date this guy, but it was definitely like we seemed to be getting along pretty well at work, and I wanted to see what that meant, because I was just like, oh, well, he's very kind, he's very gentlemanly, and I enjoy spending time with him. I enjoyed talking to him, and I didn't want that to just be the 30 minutes or 1 hour lunch break that we would have at work. Like, I wanted to actually spend time with you. And so I kind of just put my foot out there, and I was like, hey, can you just drive me? Because I don't live very far from where Chiggy lives, and the B-dubs we were going to is one that's down the street, so it wasn't so out of the way for him that if he said yes, it wasn't weird. But then if he said no, okay, no tea, no shade. I don't know, it was just my way of being like, let me just try this and see.
Sure. So during this time, I didn't think anything of it that, she was trying to get to know me or she had feelings for me or anything like that. I was completely oblivious.
A little bit.
A lot of it. What are you talking about?
Well, and like I said, this first time, it was not because I was like, oh, I'm madly in love with this guy and I want to date him. No, but I definitely wanted to get to know you.
Yeah. But for me, that wasn't in my mind. So that's why I had, like, no thoughts of it. So I pick her up on a Friday after work. We go over to B-dubs. We hang out with our friends, we eat our wings,
Was this the night that you had the spiciest one? Or was that a different night? Okay.
It was not. On our way home, I was going to go straight from B-dubs and drop you straight home. And then you were like, hey, I don't feel like going home right now. Can you drive me around a bit? And I was like, sketch. But at the same time, I was like, sure, why not? And so I gave you the idea, or I suggested an idea that we should go visit your old house when you used to live here back in the day.
Right.
And so I drove you over there, and you didn't notice which one was your house, and so I had to tell you which one it was.
I couldn't remember specifically which one it was, yeah.
Yeah. And so I showed you your house, and you were like, you think we should go up to the door and like knock and whatever? And I was like,
No, 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 no.
no.
No, I did not say that.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
You wanted to go up to it closer.
So I wanted to get closer to it, but
and I was like, no.
I didn't want to knock on the door. Wait. No. He's lying. I did not want to knock on the door. This is 11 o'clock at night. Like, no, I did not want to knock on the door. Like, what? No. But I did want to get closer. Like, as in, like, I wanted him to, like, park on the other side of the street so I could see the house better.
Yeah, and, you know, you want it to be, like, trespassing on private property.
No. It's a neighborhood. Oh, my gosh.
Anyways, I didn't want to do that. And so, you know, you suggested, hey, there's a lake that's
there's
right
like a
by.
little pond around the corner, and I remember this because as a kid, my mom and I would feed the ducks there. We would take like day-old bread, which I think bread is bad for them now. I don't know. That's like new research or something.
Yeah, whatever.
But back in the day when you were a kid and your mom's like, here's some stale bread, let's go feed the ducks. And there was one like literally just around the corner of where my old house was. And so, I suggested that to Chiggy.
Right. And so we pull up to this lake / pond or whatever.
Mm.
And when we pull up, there's a wooden fence. And on that fence
that wasn't there before.
Was a goose.
Yeah, that was weird.
just a random goose.
It felt very ominous in that moment. It very much did feel very ominous in that moment, yeah.
And so I'm like staring at this random goose. You know, my headlights are still on, and Ami just rips the door open, runs out, slams the door, and I'm just like,
you're painting
what is going on?
Such a bad light.
Well, you wanted me to tell the story.
So, that's not, I didn't want you to paint me in a bad light.
It's not that bad.
Okay, but you're making me sound like I'm neurotic. I mean, I am, but not
okay then.
Not the point. No, okay, so when Chiggy pulls up to this pond, that fence was there, the goose was there, it was very ominous, but it was also kind of like, this is ridiculous, like, this is insane. And then I saw the pond, and I just got really excited at the notion of the nostalgia of it, like, seeing it again for the first time in 20 plus years. I was like, oh, I know this place, and I just got really excited, so I, didn't rip off the door, I just jumped out the car very excitedly, and I run towards the water, because I was like, oh, I know this place, and I got very excited.
Right. And so, telling it from my point of view, because this is what I was thinking. Alright? So you run out the car.
Out the car, yeah.
You run to the lake, and I freeze. I'm in the car's still on, headlights on, I'm frozen. I'm like, this is super sketch. You're running out to the lake / pond, 11 at night. There's no, like, street lamps, over by the lake or pond, so it's dark.
Not on the lake side.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. On the
but like where I parked, there were street lamps. But yeah, over where you were, none. And so I was like, sketch. What should I do? And so I'm like sitting in my car. I think it took me a full minute before I register what I should do. And so I turn off the car.
It was a little bit. I was starting to question myself.
I turn off the car. I head over to where you were. And I start walking over to you. And I'm just like, I'm scared. But at the same time, I need to protect you just because it's dark. Something could happen, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so I walk over to you. You're looking straight up into the sky.
Right. So, again, it's 11 o'clock at night. Growing up, I was a big star girl, so I liked looking at the different constellations. And so I was looking for constellations because I was in a new state, and it was probably one of the first times while I lived here, or from when I moved here, that I was able to like look at the night sky. And I was just looking up and trying to make out different constellations.
And mind you, fun fact about me, I didn't get my glasses until I was like a sophomore in high school. And so I couldn't really see what would the stars look like until I got glasses. And so I never like knew what was up there. And so I stared up there with you. Mm-hmm. And, while I was staring, I thought back. I was like, do I like this girl or not? And so I'm going back to when you first showed up at the gelato shop.
Yeah.
So I have this thing where if I like a girl, I can't stare directly into her eyes if I like her.
Like you can't make eye contact.
Yes. And so when she first walked into the gelato shop, I saw her, locked eyes, and looked away. Literally looked at you, and then head was down. And I
I
was like, oh crap.
yeah.
Do I like this girl?
When I walked into the gelato shop, I made eye contact with Chicky, who he was behind, literally behind the gelato counter, behind the gelatos. Made eye contact with him, and I was like smiling, like I was like, oh, I want to say like hi to Chicky and like thank him for giving me this opportunity while I'm trying to figure stuff out. And he just immediately looks down, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I don't talk to him, or I'll just thank him later.
Right. And so now you're seeing the different perspectives
Very much so.
of what happened that day.
This is why communication is so important.
Right, right. Um, we can get into all that communication stuff in a different episode,
Yeah.
but going back to the story,
Mhm.
you're looking up at the stars, and I'm standing behind you looking up at the stars.
Okay.
And so, after I get through the thoughts in my head, like, do I like this girl? Should I make a move? Blah, blah, blah. I end up making a move. And mind you, at this time, I haven't been in a relationship for over a decade.
Oh yeah.
So I have no game. I don't know how to put
No
the
riz.
moves on a girl. I don't know what to do. And so my first initial reaction is to put my arms around you.
Yeah.
Right?
Which...
Hold on now. Okay? My intention was to put my arms around you.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know where to put my arms because I was like, should it be around your waist? Should it be around your neck? Should it be on your shoulders? And so I come up behind you and I put my arms around you.
Mm-hmm.
I did not look.
Yeah, no.
And so my arms were around your neck.
Yeah. So from my perspective, we're looking up at the stars, and I'm pretty sure all this time I'm kind of just jabbering at you, being like, "Oh, this is this constellation, and this is this constellation." Just being a little dorky nerd. And as I'm talking, I feel Chiggy's arms coming around me, and then I'm just like, I'm in a chokehold right now because I'm looking up, and your arms were just around my neck, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, it's not uncomfortable, but this is very awkward.
Right, right. And so I think like one of the times that you had explained how you were standing there when I was putting my arms around you, you said that you were trying to lean back, but I was so far away that like you
It was like my head.
yeah.
Because, so Chiggy was probably like a good step, 2 steps behind me, but he was leaning and putting his arms around me that way. I was trying to kind of like lean into him so that his chokehold wouldn't be as chokeholdy, and he could just kind of like have his arms like around like my shoulders. But because he was so far behind me, I was just kind of like, I mean, literally, it was probably just like a weird right triangle, right angle, whatever that is. Pythagorean theorem.
No.
But I was at a very awkward angle, and in that moment I was like, okay, this is either really really good or really really bad. I'm gonna be optimistic and just start a conversation, or start, not, let me not even say conversation. I'm gonna ask a question, and we'll just see what happens, or we'll see what he says.
Right.
So in this moment, while Chiggy is choking me out, and we're looking at the stars in this oh so not romantic situation, I kind of stop, and there was probably like a pause.
Oh yeah, there was a long awkward pause. And I'm just like, what am I doing right now?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope she likes this.
Right. It's very awkward. And so after this long awkward pause, I then say aloud, and just kind of praying and hoping that he doesn't take it the wrong way, but I just kind of said, I'm confused.
And then I say, I'm confused too.
And in response to that, I then asked Chicky, well, would you like to be confused together?
And I was like, yeah.
And that's how it started. It's not even like it was just so awkward. But it's endearing now, because looking back on it, it obviously it's very funny to us, and it's very clearly the signs were there, but we were just so not, we neither of us had game, so neither of us really knew what was going on.
Right.
Um,
I just want to add to this. If she did not shoot her shot that night, I wouldn't have shot my shot until like 6 months
I was
later.
gonna say, yeah, we've talked about this plenty of times, and Chicky tells me all the time, like, if you didn't ask me, or if we didn't like actually start talking about it, I wouldn't have said anything for at least 6 months, and I would have been like, absolutely not. I don't have the patience for that, because up until this point, I had been, I don't know, I've just been really unsuccessful in relationships. I've had a lot of bad relationships, and when I moved here, between me and like my mutual friends and stuff here, we were all just kind of like, well, why don't you just take a break from guys because you're still figuring out life and you're still figuring out your job and trying to find your place here in Virginia. Like I just moved here. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And I want to say it was probably like the week before or the month before I was having a heart to heart with one of my girlfriends, and I straight up told her I was like, you know what? For the next like I don't know 6 to 12 months, I'm not gonna try to talk to guys. I'm not gonna like I just don't have the patience for it. I can't deal with this right now. I really should focus on myself and get myself to a place where like I couldn't even say myself as dateable at the time because I was so lost in the sauce of life. And the moment that I swore off guys is the moment that I re-met Shiggy, and it was like, oh, okay, like it just kind of was this very chaotic happenstance, and I'm so eternally grateful for it now. But it was definitely we were both in a place where we weren't expecting it.
Right.
We were both looking in our own ways because we were both older at the time. Like it wasn't like we're not 18 anymore, but we definitely were at a place where it's like thinking about finding someone to settle with and thinking about someone to be with in the long term. And I think because we both had deeper intentions, even from the beginning, um, that kind of set us up to be successful as a couple.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so here we are, talking to you guys about it.
Yeah. Oh gosh. This I just blacked out. I was like, oh yeah, we are recording, aren't we?
Yes, yes, you are
Uh,
recording. And so we wanted to start this podcast and, just talk about random things together.
mhm.
For Ami, it's a way for her and I to spend quality time together.
Yes.
For me personally, it's more for me. It's a learning opportunity. Kind of like how Joe Rogan started his podcast. He just wanted to talk to people, and for me, I need to work on my communication with Ami, with other people, and so starting the podcast and just be randomly talking about stuff. It could be a way to help myself.
Yeah. And it goes both ways because communication is a two-way street. It's not something that just because I talk more or I am more comfortable talking out of the two of us, that doesn't necessarily automatically make me a better communicator. But it's the practice and the action of, especially doing it with intention. Um, and for us, I think that's really important. That's a priority of ours, not just as a couple, but just in life. And we want to we want this to be successful, and then hopefully that means that all of this will be successful. And so I'm really excited to start this new thing with you. It's all shiny and new right now, and so it's very exciting, a little overwhelming, but very very exciting. And regardless of if this gets really really big or if this just stays with us, I'm so grateful for this opportunity and this chance. And like I said, it's such a wonderful way for us to record this kind of magical chapter in our lives right now where we're on the cusp of like the next big thing, but we're really enjoying where we are right now.
Right. And so, as this being the first episode, um, I guess kind of an outlook of what you could expect from us. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, as you can see around us, we have all these stuffies. We'll definitely talk about Pokemon. She can probably talk about Harry Potter or Sanrio stuff. We're both into K-pop. It's just our own hobbies and interests.
Yeah. we have a lot in store. We have a lot planned. We're hopeful that this will just be a fun chance and time for you guys listening to spend time, with us. Whether it's you're listening while you're working or you're listening while you're doing chores around the house, just kind of having a nice conversation, going on around you to help lift your day.
Right, right. So yeah, I think that'll wrap it up for our first episode. We do hope that you guys continue to listen to the future episodes that we put out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some words of encouragement would help us.
Any
So
ideas too?
yeah,
If
of
there's
course.
something of interest to you, whether that's, something that you heard in our story today or just kind of maybe something you see in our set, I don't know. Let us know the things that you like to talk about or the things that you would like to hear about. And we'd be happy to take all those ideas into consideration and put it out for you guys. So thanks so much for listening.
Yeah. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and this has been the first episode of Bunso Bites.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.